Alrighty, welcome into the Gary Ayd Show here on the Cave, cavetalkradio.com and the Cave Talk Radio app. It's great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd here with you, and we are going up until noon, of course. A lot to get to today. Some really interesting stuff. First of all, I want to start with college basketball. Of course, tonight's the national championship game, and, well, let's just say I won't be watching. I haven't watched a second of the tournament. I don't plan to start now. I don't care about major college athletics, and I really never have. And that's the subject of today's opening rant, is a explanation as to why. People say, well, you're doing a sports talk show. How do you not care? Like, you're supposed to know everything. That's not, well, first of all, that's not how it works. When you do, let me take you behind the curtain here a little bit with this business. When you work in this business, you talk about what your regional audience is most engaged with. And obviously, depending where in the country you are, that changes, right? It's different if you're doing a national show. National is tricky because you kind of have to stick to things that have sort of crossover appeal. That's why if you listen to national radio, people say, well, it's all the same stuff. Well, because you can't really talk about Cornhuskers football to an audience that is predominantly made up of major metro listeners in New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Houston, etc. Right? When you're doing a national show, yes, there's people in Nebraska listening or in small town USA listening, but if there's 20 million listeners, probably 18 million of them or at least 10 million of them at the minimum, at least half of them are in a handful of major metros, just based on population density statistics, right? So when you're doing a show, unless you're doing a national show, you have to tailor it to the region that you work in. So if I worked in, let's just say Tuscaloosa, Alabama, well, I'd be talking Crimson Tide nonstop. I'd be talking NASCAR nonstop. That's what you would do. I work in the suburbs of New York, so I talk, of course, hyper local. We'll have the OC Smash scoreboard coming up in about 10 minutes, and we talk regional New York sports. The one exception to this rule is if you talk NBA, if you're in a market that has some NBA love, and New York, of course, does, NBA, you can get away with talking national even to a regional audience because the NBA is consumed that way. But other sports, you're not going to hear me come on here and talk about, the Diamondbacks or even the Dodgers very much. You're not going to hear me talk about, I don't know, pick the Blue Jays. Like, you're just not going to do it because it's not of interest to the audience. So college basketball for a New York regional audience is in that mold. It's not regionally attractive. It's not regionally relevant. When was the last time a New York region team was really relevant in college athletics? I guess you can count Syracuse in that. So even Syracuse hasn't been relevant in a long time at a really high level. They're on the fringe of relevant most of the time. They weren't this year. But the bottom line is it's not an area of the country where college basketball or football, even more so, is super important. Now, with that kind of behind the curtain sort of settled, let me tell you specifically why I personally don't really watch college athletics. One is I don't enjoy watching sort of a watered down version of the professional thing. I much prefer going to like community college basketball games, Division 3, even Division 2, or even low Division 1. There is a sense of this is a different beast, right, than the NBA. There is no such sense of that when you watch UConn, UNC, Duke, pick your big program, Kentucky, whoever. Because it's basically professional light. The entire apparatus is built to be professional light. That's just what it is. So for me, I don't need the light version of the real thing. I just don't. And college basketball, and we'll address this more specifically in the top 5 later on, has a handful of rules that, if adjusted, would make it more aesthetically pleasing to my eye. There's a lot about college basketball that is not aesthetically pleasing to my eye. And now you have the NIL stuff, the transfer portal, and that just exacerbates the fact that it is professional light. NIL, endorsements, transfer portal, free agency. What's different about college basketball other than the talent level than the professional ranks? Major college basketball I'm talking about. And football's the same. I'm just using basketball because that's what's, when today's the national championship game on the men's side. So, but what's different about it? Except the players aren't as good. And like, when I say not as good, I mean a lot less good, right? I mean, let's just be real about it. So that's my deal. So we're going to talk about this more in the top 5. I have some specific, I'm intentionally not giving you everything right now because I want to save some for the top 5, specific answers to these questions to make it a better product, because I think it's a good product. It has the potential to be a good product. I just don't think it's a good product right now. And one of the things that can draw you to being a college sports fan is basically a handful of things. You went to a school that is nationally relevant. You grew up or live in an area of the country where it is a major part of the sports lexicon, or you have some type of, you grew up in an age. There was a time when college basketball was awesome, right? In the 80s and before that. If you're old enough to have lived through that the college basketball was more of a national product at that time. And then it's an old habits die hard type of thing, right? But short of those couple of things, it's very hard to become a fan of college basketball organically in a region of the country where it's not super prevalent, if you weren't already a fan, and if you hadn't gone to one of those major schools. If one of those 3 things doesn't apply to you, the odds of you becoming a fan of the sport just because you turned on a random game, like if you're from New York, you're not likely to have just turned on, like if you live in Boston, right? If you live in New York City, or let's say you live in Dallas, you're not likely to just turn on a random Kentucky versus Providence or whoever game and suddenly become a fan of college basketball. It's not likely to happen. The reason that happens more in the NBA is because guys in the NBA are so otherworldly good and they're sold as individual stars that it just grabs you. College basketball doesn't do that right now. And I have a few reasons why and how to make it a little bit better. It would make it a different product. What I'm trying to do is the same thing I've said about the WNBA over the years. If they truly want to establish their own identity, the WNBA and major college athletics, they have to be something different on either the brand side or the product side from the NBA. Right, like I said, college basketball is NBA light, so I'll just watch the NBA. What I'm going to propose in the second hour would make it its own thing, and it would be attractive on its own merits versus just being a lighter version of the professional game. The WNBA, their problem, in my opinion, is their name, the WNBA. That name insinuates NBA lesser. It does. If you want to be your own brand and stand on your own feet, you have to have a name that is your own. Anything with before NBA just kind of has a connotation of remedial, lesser than, minor leagues. It just does. That is how it's perceived on a marketing level, whether consciously or subconsciously. Most people don't think about this stuff. I'm a nerd, so I understand that. But ultimately, you need to have your own identity. So we're going to talk, and maybe we'll bunch these together, but I think we're going to focus more on the college sports in the top 5 coming up. We got a lot more to get to. We got the radio question of the day. And also we have our NBA storylines, MLB early observations. We're going to have the return of Jim Volkmer in hour number 2. Longtime listeners might remember him. For those that are new to the show, he used to come on our show on a regular basis talking sports gambling. That's in hour number 2 as well. So we got a lot of good stuff to get to. Really going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. By the way, a quick update on my co-host, Rich Anselmo. He has begun vocal therapy today. He'll be out for the foreseeable future. Hopefully, we're able to get him back at some point. So no definitive news on that just yet, but we'll obviously keep you updated as more stuff becomes known and becomes available to us. We'll obviously pass the word on. So we're wishing him obviously a speedy recovery. And right now it's time for the OC Smash scoreboard update. And of course, this is from the weekend that was. We'll start with the 13U team, which is coached by Anthony Rizzi. They played 3 games in Dory Park, Virginia over the weekend, and they battled elite competition to a respectable 1-2 mark, winning the middle game by a score of 14-4. That was against the Pioneers. Center fielder Aaron Drucker went 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs, a walk, a run scored, and a stolen base. Logan Miller, meanwhile, played a strong first base and totaled 2 RBIs and 2 bases on balls to go along with his 2 innings on the mound, allowing just 1 run, striking out 2. Collectively, Jake Cross and Michael Zimberry were awarded the Players of the Week for their consistent play throughout the weekend on the mound and in the batter's box. So you'll be hearing from them later in the week with our featured interviews. Elsewhere for the Smash, the 11U and 10U teams squared off twice against each other this weekend. The 11U team won both games, but the 10U squad got a ton of great experience against their older Smash comrades. And counting the 2 intra-organizational wins this weekend, the 11U team is now 5-1 on the year. Other action, the OC Smash Navy 12U squad split 2 games against the Naturals, winning the first game 9-1 before falling 7-6 in the second. Connor McHale pitched and played center field, totaling 2 runs and 2 RBIs on 1 hit and a walk, and then hit a 2-run home run. So that was the RBIs there. So a big day for him. He also pitched 2 scoreless innings, striking out 5. So Connor McHale, an excellent game, an excellent day at the office. Teammate Byron Brach, I hope I said that right, added another RBI and 2 stolen bases to help the winning effort in that first game. And finally, you have the 9U squad, which won its first official game of the year, winning a shootout 15-12 against the Stars Baseball Academy. 6 Smash players had at least 1 RBI in this game, led by the 5 RBIs of Bryce Seabury. The other Smash to get RBIs were Bryce Lilia, John Loftus, Michael Levine, Dylan Turso, and Tommy McKeon, who had 2 RBIs. And as a reminder, full feature interviews of our 2 players of the week, Jake Cross and Michael Zimberry, will air at 10:30 tomorrow here on the show. If you haven't already, download the Cave Talk Radio app or follow us on Facebook, which is Cave Talk Radio NY, to hear this week's Player of the Week interviews. And that is our OC Smash action update. The radio question of the day is next here on the Gary Ayd Show on the Cave.
A new kind of sports betting is disrupting the industry. I am KO, back in 1 minute with your sports question of the day.
You can earn a substantial income by farming for the city. All you need to do is take your crop to market and win the competition for the consumer dollars. There is a well-proven strategy for winning this competition. You will find it embedded in Metro Farm, the guide to growing in or near the city for the city.
Polyface Farms, Joel Salatin.
Few how-to books could be more appropriate for our times than Metro Farm. It's a must-read.
USDA Director Bud Kerr.
Big book. Metro Farm describes the agronomic, economic, and managerial concepts required to generate substantial profits from agricultural locales near metropolitan areas.
Metrofarm.com. Metrofarm.com.
Live betting, which is also known as in-game betting, is projected to account for up to 70% of all sports bets placed in the U.S. by 2023. Play Maryland reports that the growth of in-game betting has opened the door to new markets at sportsbooks, primarily those centered around micro-betting. Micro-betting software SimpleBet, which is employed at major sportsbooks like DraftKings, uses machine learning to provide odds on specific occurrences within a sporting event, allowing bettors to place wagers on specific elements of a live game. DraftKings reports that micro-betting accounted for more than 30% of its college football handle during bowl season. Question: which sport do you think is best for micro-bets? Baseball, soccer, hockey, basketball, or football?
Well, the easy answer is football, right? Because football is like the easy answer for anything. When you ask what's best for sports betting, you can fill in the blank on the specifics. It almost doesn't matter. I think the only exception to that is if you follow the NBA closely, and this has become less true than it was a few years ago because of the muddling effect of load management and oversensitivity to minor injuries in terms of affecting when guys play. But the lone exception to me has always been if you were just going to bet the money line, which is the opposite of these micro bets in game bettings, obviously, right? The total opposite. But if you were just going to do that and you really follow the NBA closely, I think that's the best sport to just bet winners and losers on. It's the easiest one, I think, to do that with. But ultimately, back to the question, football is basically the answer to any other, what's the best sport to bet on for fill in the blank? It's football, because every drive is, every possession is its own mini game, right? Where else do you have that? You don't have that in basketball. It's more free flowing than that. You don't have that in soccer and hockey. A lot of the game, nothing event wise happens. There's less in-game events to bet on in those sports because of the nature of them. And baseball is just a total, who the hell knows type of thing. Like, it's just a total open air question. So from a micro betting standpoint, which relies so heavily, and maybe we'll ask this question to Jim a little bit later on. Might be fun for him to take a crack at this. From a micro betting standpoint, which requires predominantly events to bet on, who's going to get the next first down, who's going to get the next points, who's going to make the next tackle, who's going to make the next catch. I mean, you could see I'm using all, for instances with football, they're just flowing off the top of my head because there are so many. So that's why it's the answer, right? I mean, let's take another sport like soccer, for example. If I'm going to do an in-game bet on soccer, what am I betting? Who's going to score next? The answer could be nobody, right? If it's already 1-1, there's a good chance no one else scores. And even if someone else does, your guess is as good as mine on what team that is, let alone what player, right? Hockey's the same way. Baseball is pretty much the same. Basketball, it's a little bit better. I would say basketball is probably the second best sport for this. There is obviously an infinite number of things that happen on every possession. So from that standpoint, it's fruitful. It's a fertile betting ground, so to speak. But it's not it's almost too vast in terms of what you could bet on to have any real shot at it. I mean, none of these things are good, right? Like ultimately, the reason the industry keeps growing is not because people are winning, right? Like, so there's always that. And that's the other part of the expansion of in-game betting. KO mentioned the machine learning in that question. The problem is, and the more specific and broad the broad in terms of the number of offerings, specific in terms of what actions or events have to take place to pay off on those offerings, the more of that stuff becomes available, the less confident you should feel in your ability to win consistently, because there's just so much. Where do you start? Where do you focus on? And I'm no gambling expert, right? I know enough about it, but it's not something I spend hours and hours on and break down metrics. I mean, there's people that this is what they do, right? So, I mean, there's certainly people, Jim is one of them, smarter than me with this. And we'll ask him this question a little bit later on because I think it's relevant. But I think that my initial gut instinct, and I do a lot based on instinct, right? That's how I kind of live my life. I really trust my own instincts and my own judgment on stuff, even in areas where I'm not quote unquote an expert. I trust my my instincts on because I feel I have a good sense of right and wrong in a lot of things, not just in a moral like crime sense. That's not what I mean here at all. Just in terms of sort of the better path or the better approach or perspective on things. But anyway, my instinct is with this is what they would call in Vegas a sucker bet. There's a game, a table game that I used to play a little bit when I would be waiting. I play poker. That's the only game I play. Texas Hold'em, full ring games, cash games, and tournaments. I prefer tournaments. Well, there's a game, a pit poker game called Let It Ride, which I would occasionally play when I was waiting for a tournament to start. So I only played this really as a time killer when I had about 40 minutes or less to kill. I didn't ever play this for more than an hour because it's still a pit game, which means it's still set up for you to lose. But the way this game works is you have 3 main bets that you start with. If it's a $5 table, you start with $15 out. And generally it's jacks or better to qualify to win. So if you have, let's say you have 3, 9, and 7, non-suited or whatever, that's a terrible hand. You would pull back one of your bets, and then there a card would come out, face card, community card. If it doesn't improve your hand, you pull back a second bet. The last card comes out, and then if you don't make a jacks or better, you lose that remaining $5 bet. But you got 10 of the 15 that you started the hand back by basically it's almost like a non-fold fold. But there's another bet, which is basically like on something like really stupid, like having this or higher or this suit or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but it's like a $1 bet, a minimum of $1, and it's a total sucker bet. Like you just wouldn't do it. And my instinct is it's a sucker bet to bet some of these really specific things. To me, it really is. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. So anyway, all right. Well, that's my take. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we will continue on. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
To the home run of our favorite beverage, Days Coffee. Days' patented blend contains approximately 85% less caffeine than other coffees, which makes it better for you, yet unlike decaf coffee, still gives you that great pickup and tastes amazing. Formulated by a retired cancer pathologist, Dr. Grant Lee, Days Coffee is fermented with a patented enzyme that until now required a complex and thus expensive sourcing and production process. With Dr. Lee's formulation, this enzyme's great health benefits can now be brought to your cup quicker, easier, and cheaper than ever before. Here's how you get a hold of this game-changing cup of joe. Go over to radioonlydeals.com and get a $4 gift certificate to Dave's Coffee for just $2. That's radioonlydeals.com to buy your single-use digital gift certificate for Dave's Coffee. Radioonlydeals.com. That's radioonlydeals.com. Enjoy the preferred coffee of the Gary Ayd Show. Enjoy Dave's Coffee.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. That's 800-741-9557. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. That's 800-826-5884.
Alrighty, so we're back here on the Gary Ayd Show, and we're going to take a look at some NBA storylines going into the last week or so of the regular season. No games on tonight. We'll have a full slate tomorrow. The Knicks, though, last night with their win against Washington, clinched a playoff berth. So the New York Knicks will be in the playoffs. We'll see where they finally finish up in seeding. There will still be some jostling with seeding numbers the rest of the way in both conferences. But ultimately, I think that the Knicks are in a pretty good spot. Now, here's the question I have for the Knicks. This is where the storyline for the Knicks comes into play. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Coffee Lovers Middletown is now officially home to the home run of our favorite beverage, Dave's Coffee. Dave's patented blend contains approximately 85% less caffeine than other coffees, which makes it better for you, yet unlike decaf coffee, still gives you that great pickup and tastes amazing. Formulated by a retired cancer pathologist, Dr. Grant Lee, Dave's Coffee is fermented with a patented enzyme that until now required a complex and thus expensive sourcing and production process. With Dr. Lee's formulation, this enzyme's great health benefits can now be brought to your cup quicker, easier, and cheaper than ever before. Here's how you get a hold of this game-changing cup of joe. Go over to radioonlydeals.com and get a $4 gift certificate to Dave's Coffee for just $2. That's radioonlydeals.com to buy your single-use digital gift certificate for Dave's Coffee. Radioonlydeals.com. That's radioonlydeals.com. Enjoy the preferred coffee of the Gary Ayd Show. Enjoy Dave's Coffee.
Are you like me? You have health insurance, but you don't have dental insurance. Do you need to get to the dentist right away? Maybe you need an implant or some other major service. Well, I found a dental insurance plan that's just right for you. It's called Spirit Dental. Spirit Dental offers a $100 lifetime deductible, a huge network of dentists. And here's the best part. There's no waiting periods. Yeah, that means you can call right now and have real dental insurance for you and your family tomorrow and get that immediate coverage you want. Spirit Dental has plans for just a few dollars a day, up to $5,000 annual maximum, and coverage for implants. Whatever age you are, the dental insurance you need is a free phone call away. Now don't wait, and be sure to ask about Spirit's vision plan. Here's the number: 800-631-9229. 800-631-9229. That's 800-631-9229.
Hey friend, life happens and you need money. What do? You call the special toll-free number we're about to give you. We will send you a link to your phone with details on how you can loan up to $5,000. Couldn't you use $5,000 to pay for your rent, pay grocery bills, get your car repaired, or whatever you need? It's up to you. We don't care. We're just here to lend you the money. And we'll lend people money with good, bad, or no credit at all. Of course, some terms and conditions apply, and you'll see those on the link we're going to send you. So if you need up to $5,000 maybe as soon as the next business day, call this number right now. We will text you a free link with details.
Paid for by Money Mutual. Call 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. That's 800-586-7112.
All right, sorry about that. There was kind of a quick emergency. We had to take a quick break, but just saying about the Knicks, I think that it was a really impressive win the other day against Cleveland. Their first game without Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson went crazy. Probably their most impressive win of the year. But as I've said before, a lot of times that first game after you fire the coach, after you have a major injury, make a big trade, those first game or two, there's this like kind of sugar rush of this, like, you know, Spartan will show them type of attitude. And you see this with teams all the time. So I almost expected the Knicks to win that Cavs game. I didn't necessarily expect Brunson would have almost 50, but I expected he would play well, want to show that he can do it by himself and that the team would win. And they did. I expected them to beat Washington because they're better, and they did. So congratulations to the Knicks. They've clinched the playoffs. I think the biggest storyline for me the rest of the way is going to be, how do the Knicks play the rest of this year and probably their first round playoff series against whoever that ends up being against without Julius Randle. Look, not only is he, in my opinion, their best player, he's certainly one of their two best players. He's also only missed these last two games. They don't have any real experience playing without him. They have none. So that is a big storyline. And I want to see how they do the rest of the way. Because like I said, there's this little sugar rush I expected. And, you know, congratulations. I mean, that was a great win against Cleveland. I don't want to marginalize that in any way. But beating Washington last night, clinching a playoff spot, a big win because it clinched a spot. But they beat a team that they were, they're supposed to beat. Let's just put it that way. Washington playing without a lot of people. And ultimately, the Knicks are better. Even man to man, if everyone's healthy, the Knicks are better. So they won a game that they should have won, and they did. So good. This is what they have left on their schedule. They have 3 games left. They have one Wednesday, one Friday, and one Sunday. They're playing at Indiana, at New Orleans, and home to Indiana. So they have a pretty easy schedule the last few games. So I don't think we're really going to know from whether they win those or lose those or some combination. I don't think that's really going to tell us anything about how this team's really going to play against a tough competitor in a big game without their best player. We're going to have to wait to the playoffs. And fortunately, that's not a long wait. And as it stands right now, the Knicks are the 5 seed. And they're probably going to stay there because they're 2.5 clear of Brooklyn for 6. And they're 3 back of Cleveland for 4th. So they are likely to play a rematch of the Cleveland matchup in a first round series in that 4-5 matchup. And I got to tell you something. I don't know what I would have predicted or what I will predict in terms of this matchup with a healthy Julius Randle. Without a healthy Julius Randle in a long playoff series where Cleveland is likely to have the home court advantage, I don't like the Knicks' chances very much. I don't. Because that front court for the Cavs is strong. Allen and Mobley are just a dynamic duo up front that give a lot of teams a lot of difficulties. Of course, we know Donovan Mitchell, former Net Karis LeVert is really good. There's a lot there. So even with a healthy Julius Randle, I think the Cavs are a little bit better. Without him, that's going to be a real telling series. It's going to tell me a lot about maybe I've been wrong. Maybe the Knicks don't need Randle. Maybe he's expendable. Maybe he's the overrated player that a lot of Knicks fans, a section of Knicks fans likes to say he is. They're all in on Brunson, and Brunson is all we need. I don't believe that at all. I really don't. But look, if they go in, they beat Cleveland in that first round series without Julius Randle, and Brunson's great, I might have to change my mind. I'm not above changing my mind when observations dictate it's time to do so. I'm not. But my feeling is there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Knicks fan. You're pretty much locked into that first round matchup with Cleveland. Right? So that's one of the biggest storylines to follow the rest of the way. Another big one is the ascension of the Lakers. For the first time all year, they look pretty good. And they are now a half game behind both Golden State and the Clippers for that 6 and 7 seed. I'm sorry, for that 5 and 6 seed. The Lakers currently sit in a virtual tie for 7th with New Orleans. Their remaining schedule in the more, how we say, undecided West, that's the best way to put it. This is their remaining schedule. So they have 4 games left to play, the Lakers. They are playing at Utah tomorrow, at the Clippers on Wednesday, before finishing the season with 2 home games against Phoenix and Utah Friday and Sunday. If the Lakers manage to win the next 2 games on the road against Utah and LA, which, by the way, the Clippers have owned the Lakers in recent years, owned them. But if they manage to win those 2, I believe that locks them into that 6 seed, which means they're out of the play-in tournament. So that's still very much in play. A lot still to be made of the Lakers season. And later in the week, we'll do some playoff scenarios. Probably Thursday, we'll do some playoff scenarios, because then we'll have the weekend to look forward to, and we can kind of more easily kind of figure that out. So we got that coming up. But there's a lot of interesting little storylines the rest of the way in the NBA. There really is. The Lakers and Knicks are 2 big ones to me. One other one is who's going to come out of the East. Milwaukee is an interesting case. They got absolutely crushed by Boston and then came back and convincingly beat Philadelphia. And those 3 teams are, I believe, head and shoulders better than the rest of the conference. Now, that's not to say the Knicks and the Cavs aren't really good. They both are. Nets are scrappy. They are. But those 3 teams are better than everybody. And I think that the fact that in a handful of days, the Bucks played the other 2, got killed by one, and convincingly beat the other, tells me that all 3 of these teams are fully capable of beating each other. And we're in for an awesome Eastern Conference playoff. I think the first round of the East might be a little bit funky, except the middle matchups. But I think that the second and third round, the semis and the conference finals, I think will be amazing. I really do. I think we have 3 teams that are perfectly capable of not just representing the East, but I'll say this. I believe the winner of that trio, assuming health and they don't beat each other too much to crap, I believe the winner of that trio, the one that survives from that triumvirate, will end up hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy. I do believe that. So, hey, we'll see. I think it's a really big deal. I think it's a great conference this year. The Eastern Conference is loaded. Now, I've seen recently, getting back to the West for a second, a lot of people I respect, saying that the Lakers could be a dark horse in this conference. And I see where it's coming from. They have a healthy roster, mostly for the first time all year. They remade their roster brilliantly. Rob Pelinka deserves a lot of credit for that. I've been hard on him, but he did a good job. They have a lot of athletes now. They have shooters. I don't think Darvin Ham uses his talent optimally. I believe both Rui Hachimura, Malik Beasley, and Lonnie Walker IV, I think all three of those guys should get more playing time and bigger roles than they get. But there's the talent is there. They're playing better. Davis looks engaged for the first time. And look, if they were to play Denver in the first round right now, I think they'd give them a hard series. I do. A lot of people view Denver as sort of a paper tiger, sort of a regular season team, a soft team, I guess you could say. I don't really see them that way. I see them as an immensely skilled team. I see them as a team that's led by one of the very best players in the world, very good coach in Mike Malone, an excellent guard in Jamal Murray. But I do think they lack athleticism on the wings. I do think they lack defensive wing depth and a frontline shot blocker. And those couple of weaknesses against a team like the Lakers, which is, I believe, first in the NBA in free throw attempts because of their aggressive attacking the basket, initiating contact style, that's going to cause the Nuggets problems. It just is. From a matchup standpoint, the Lakers give athletic teams problems in that regard. I think they'll give the Nuggets a lot of problems. Now, where the Nuggets will give the Lakers problems, of course, is in their offensive efficiency and their shooting numbers. The Nuggets shoot almost 50 and 40 from the field and three-point line, respectively, as a team on the season. The Lakers are not a high-efficient offense, particularly from three. They've gotten better, significantly so, even as the year has gone on because of the acquisitions I mentioned, but they're still not even, I wouldn't even call them above average. They might be on the bottom end of average. So that's going to be an area where the Nuggets will have a distinct edge. Interestingly enough, the Lakers are actually a better free throw shooting team than the Nuggets, but which could be a big factor because of what I just mentioned. The Lakers get a lot of free throws, so it's important that they make them. That could be a really, really good series. And 2 weeks ago or a month ago, basically before the deadline and before this recent surge, I wouldn't have said that. I don't even know that I would have said the Lakers are going to be in the playoffs. But now they look like they're going to be. And they might even be a factor. So it's pretty crazy how things change. It really, truly is. One last thing I want to say about the NBA is people are all over Phoenix. I have to see them in a tough series because the problem I have with Phoenix is, and this is the problem with Durant teams, and Chris Paul's the same way. They're so, I guess the word is, they have such negative energy, such victim-fueled energy, that whenever they get into a tough series where it's a little physical, maybe it's a little chirpy, maybe the other team is getting some calls because they're playing a different style or whatever. Remember, Phoenix shoots a lot of jump shots, a lot of mid-range shots, a lot of threes. They don't have a style that is conducive to shooting a ton of free throws. Other teams do. And whenever that happens, Chris Paul and Kevin Durant's history, and I think Devin Booker is beginning to learn this from both of them because he's starting to do the same thing, is to complain about it. complain about the refs, complain about this, complain about that. And ultimately, when you do that, your mind goes to a place of frustration. It can't not. It goes to a place of thinking about things you can't control, that you don't control. And that's how you lose tough playoff series. And then you end up blaming everyone else, and you lack the accountability, and then you don't rebound the next time. And people say, well, Kevin Durant's won 2 championships. Yeah, he rode the coattails of a team that didn't need him to those championships. I'm sorry. I don't view them as super legitimate. He won them. They count. But I don't think he was the reason they won. He just made them basically invincible by adding another amazing offensive weapon. But there was no pressure on him to perform. He wasn't the leader of that team, right? So now there's more pressure on him to perform. And based on past history with him and Chris Paul individually and now collectively, I believe that they are unlikely to meet that pressure. I believe that at some point, whether it's the Lakers, the Nuggets, or someone else, I believe that they will face a difficult series and not be up for it. Now, the one thing they have going for them is this is a very mediocre Western Conference this year. If you ascribe to the theory that Denver is a bit overrated, there's no one else that's even really rated, right? I mean, you're talking about a pretty easy Western Conference. So I think that works in everyone's favor. And I guess more so in the Suns' favor because of the overall physical talent that they bring to the table. That's you can't deny that. I mean, it's there. So for me, if I'm the Suns, I got to stay out of my own head. I got to be accountable. I got to not argue about the refs, not blame the refs, and just understand that we're a shooting team. We don't draw a lot of fouls. Other teams are going to shoot more free throws than us. It's not because the refs are rooting for anybody. It's because that's the style of play. If you can understand that and keep that perspective, I think the Suns could very well win the conference. Now, like I said before, I do not believe anyone in the West is hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy. I believe that is going to come down to one of those 3 teams in the East, Philly, Milwaukee, or Boston. But I do think anyone in the West has a reasonable shot at making the finals. I do. Whether it's the Lakers, the Clippers, the Grizzlies, Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, Phoenix, all those teams have a shot. They do. So it's going to be an interesting Western Conference. I just don't think it's a great Western Conference. All right, there you have it. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We got the top 5 around the corner. The top 5 today. What are the top 5 things I would do to make college sports better? That is next. Back after this, the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave. All righty, welcome back to the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave, cavetalkradio.com, and the Cave Talk Radio app. Great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd here with you. And we got a whole bunch of extra stuff to talk about. Right now, it's time, though, for the top 5.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time for Cave Talk Radio's Top 5.
Alrighty, there we have it. Top 5. And today's top 5 is this. What are the 5 things I would do to make college sports more attractive? And specifically, I'm going to focus my attention on college basketball because I think there's more broken with it than college football. I think college football is a lot better off than college basketball. So couple of things are rule changes. And these are things I've talked about and thought about for years, right? As sort of an outside analyst or consultant perspective might, because I've never been a big fan of college sports. So this is not coming from a place of wistful or wishful thinking or fandom, because I don't really care. But just looking at it in like a kind of a cold analytical sense on how to make a product better, I have a few things I think would really help college basketball in particular. So the first one is, there's actually 2 rule changes I would make. The first rule change I would make, for sure, is I would shorten the shot clock to 28 seconds. It's too long, and I think it needs to be shortened. It's just sit there. And I think it's too long. You could even move it to 24 seconds. Because I think they moved it from 34 to 35 to 30, which was a good move. Yeah, so that was a couple of years ago, about 8 years ago. I think it needs to be even shorter. I think it needs to be, just make it 24 or maybe 26. It used to be 35, and that just drove me crazy. Now at 30, it's a lot better. But I think the impact of it hasn't been felt to the extent that it should have been in terms of opening up the game more and making it faster for one reason, which is my second rule adjustment. The 5 seconds closely guarded rule, which heavily neuters and limits isolation play, which is what it's designed to do. Right? People say, I love the team game. I love all the passing. What do you like? You like the fact that they take the ball out of the hands of one of the 2 guys on a team that can really create his own shot and make him swing the ball to the right or left and then get it back and try to reset and then do it again and again and again. Like, is that what you like? Because it's not like it's creating this like New York Knicks 1970s free-flowing offense, because you can't. You can't do that. Why? Because the talent's not there. Goes back to what I was saying before. The talent level is just so much different, so much lower. So get rid of that rule and focus more on the guys who are actually capable of creating offense on a consistent basis. Put the ball in their hand for longer, uninterrupted stretches and see what happens. I thought about removing or instituting, I should say, defensive 3 seconds at the college level, but I don't think that's necessary. With the way the game is played now, you can't really just hang in the paint defensively and wait for someone to come to you anymore anyway. So I don't think that's really necessary. So those are 2 rule changes, on the court adjustments. The second thing I would do is I would absolutely, this would take a lot of legal maneuvering and involve the NBA. But I would absolutely get with the NBA and say, okay, NBA, allow high school players to go either directly to the NBA or into this new G League Ignite program you have. If they don't qualify for the latter, because you have to be a top, I think it's 25 recruit in your high school class to qualify, and you choose not to do the former, because those two don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. More people can choose to directly enter the NBA draft outside of the top 25 if they chose. But if they don't qualify for the latter and don't choose to do the former, and they go to college, the second they go to college, they're no longer eligible for the NBA draft for, say, another 3 years. So after their junior season. What that would do is twofold. It would be great for the NBA and great for the kids, because the kids would have the opportunity to pursue their professional vocation. Why should an athlete at 18 not be able to enter the workforce, as it is in their case with basketball, the same way any other graduating high school student could choose to eschew college and enter the workforce in whatever vocation they were choosing? Say being a plumber, a truck driver, working at a bank, getting into retail, working as a security guard. Like, why should NBA players or prospective NBA players not have that option? It's un-American, in my opinion. So you kind of fix what I see as a wrong in that respect. You eliminate a big chunk of the one and done type of guys. And that is a big deal for college basketball. That's been a huge thorn in the sports side for a long time, is the one and done, right? And now that is compounded, and it could even end up being replaced to an extent by the NIL and the transfer portal. But I think it's too early to tell. But my hunch, my instinct, which, as I said, I trust immensely, my instinct is that the same people, there will be a lot of overlap, not 100%, but a good number of overlap, good percentage of overlap between the one and done type of talent, the people that get a lot of these NIL deals, and more importantly for college basketball, the people who are more likely to use the transfer portal. I think you're going to see, if you all of a sudden didn't have a big chunk of the one and done guys because they were going directly to the NBA at a high school, I think you would have far more control, more stability, more continuity. That's the word I was looking for. More continuity with the remaining talent in college basketball. Not only because there'd be, I think, less people using the transfer portal, but they would be then required to be there for the 3 years. And it's the biggest reason, I believe, why college football remains more viable than college basketball, because college football doesn't have one and dones, because you're not allowed to go to the NFL until whatever is 3 years out of high school. If the NBA, which is a different sport, basketball is a different sport, obviously, if they kind of worked with college basketball leadership to create this sort of compromise, I think it would help both leagues and the players immensely. And it would create a different type of product. And that's my fourth pillar here for the NCAA, is create a product that is distinctly different than the NBA's product. We don't need to see NBA light, right? Like, if you're going to present yourself as a national product, as they do, you're not going to draw audiences in non-traditional markets by being a lesser version of what I can watch in the NBA. You're just not. So one way to do that would be to have some continuity on your roster by doing what I just said with the 3-year requirement if you don't go right out of high school. Have maybe different styles of play. That's one thing that college basketball does do that I think they should put more forward and promote better, which is they do play more through the post than they do in the NBA. And there's a lot of people that like that style. Make that more of a thing. Build up your post players. Make them stars the way they used to be. So that would be the fourth thing, is create a product. And a lot of this is marketing and positioning that is different than the NBA. And I think the fifth thing is, play to your strengths. Your strengths are the emotional pull within all of us to some degree or another to be able to say, we saw this kid when. We watched him come up. We watched him grow up. There's an attraction to non-professional sports because of that emotional pull. Capitalize better on that. And I think one way to do that would be in the presentation of the games. So instead of me hearing Kevin Harlan or Iron Eagle or Jim Nantz or any of the other guys I'm liable to hear in other major sporting events, let me hear that team's senior radio broadcaster on ESPN. Let me hear the guy who is maybe doing the AA or AAA baseball in the town. Let me hear him or her do that game. Like, let's put forward different broadcast talent with a wholly different sound, even if it's quote unquote less polished. Let's put that forward and make it part of the soundtrack of college athletics. It will make it feel more, I guess, authentic and, again, different from the NBA. And maybe it's as simple as whoever the team broadcaster is simulcasted on the national broadcast, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a student necessarily. I think that would be cool. Maybe you put the student as the color commentator or whatever. I think this idea that we need to have former college stars and, the A-list broadcasters calling these events, I think it's television executive ego that's driving that, not audience demand. I think it would be very, very refreshing and interesting to hear different voices, different people at earlier stages in their careers, not at the top of their profession, because there's a lot of us, right? And there would be a healthy number of people, I believe, would specifically tune in for that. So that would be what I would suggest. So that's my top 5 today. So recapping this, my top 5 ways to fix more so college basketball than college football. Number 1, get rid of the lower the shot clock to 24 or 26 seconds. Number 2, get rid of 5 seconds closely guarded. Number 3, add in some type of rule where if you don't go to college, if you don't go to the NBA right out of college, you have to stay for 3 years. Number 4, be different than the NBA. Find a way to differentiate yourself. Have market your post players better. And number 5 would be use different announcers. So there you have it. That is my top 5. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. I'll give you some MLB observations, early observations, along with some news you can use. We got Jim Volkmer as well. It's the Gary Ayd Show. Back after this here on The Cave.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. That's 800-741-9557. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. That's 800-826-5884.
Alrighty, so some early MLB observations. First of all, I was listening to a little bit of the Mets-Marlins game yesterday, the first inning, as a matter of fact. And Howie Rose is just such an easy listen. He always has been. He's wonderful to listen to. And I was anticipating the beginning of this game greatly because, obviously, of the debut of Sengai, who is obviously the big acquisition from Japan this year, big starting pitcher. And he has this quote-unquote ghost forkball. Well, he got off to a rough start, as did the Marlins pitcher. So the Mets scored 2 runs in the top half of the first. The Marlins answered with 1 in the bottom of the first, where Sengai threw, I think, about 30 pitches, a little less, like 20-something pitches, if I remember correctly. But after that, he was great. And in fact, that was the only run the Mets gave up. He finished with, I think, 8 strikeouts over 5 1/3 innings. Pitched pretty well and really settled down. I think I'm going to like this kid. I think he's a guy that is going to be pretty good. You could tell he was so nervous, just totally nervous, which made perfect sense. I mean, it's bad enough when you're making your major league debut. That's a nerve-wracking experience for everybody. But imagine doing that in a foreign country, surrounded by people who speak a language you don't really speak. And it's just a lot. I learned on the broadcast, I didn't know this, but apparently the baseballs in America are a little bit larger than the ones in Japan, which makes, obviously changes the way you grip a ball, the way you, the ball maybe spins. Obviously it changes the aerodynamics of it. It's a big deal for a pitcher, particularly one who relies on a pitch as movement heavy as a forkball usually is. So it took him a little while to kind of, I guess, settle that down. I'm assuming the ball size probably wasn't as big of a deal as just the nerves of the event, because I'm assuming throughout the spring they've been using the same ball. So that probably was something he's already more or less adjusted to. But he probably just temporarily forgot all those adjustments because he was nervous. And when you're nervous, things that are more recent changes for you tend to revert to your longer standing habits. But I was happy, and that's why my initial review of him is so positive, is when you can encounter stress like that, let it hit you in the chest, seem like you're going to be on the mat, and then recover from it and punch back and have a good start. That shows me a level of intestinal fortitude that you generally don't see with a lot of athletes. So that tells me that this guy's got guts, and I like guys with guts. So that was a lot of fun. And the Mets played great. One other thing, if you didn't see it, Giancarlo Stanton hit a moonshot, an absolute bomb against, I think it was the Giants, just a total bomb. And this is a guy that I have felt for a long time is grossly underappreciated. Totally underappreciated. Because he is so powerful. You just look at him, you could just see the power in him. And even his bad years, he has 30 home runs, 29 home runs, 35 home runs. Like, those are bad years, right? And he reminds me a lot of A-Rod. Not that I think he's anywhere near the player A-Rod was, but he reminds me of him in this sense. Yankee fans just don't appreciate him. They never accepted him. They just look at him as an albatross contract. And I understand he misses a lot of time. He's far from perfect. Look, I get it. But let's not pretend he's nothing either. He's an absolutely critical piece to this team. And he's one of the main reasons why it continues to drive me crazy and perplex me that Aaron Boone is committed to batting Judge second. Like, no. Move Rizzo to second, bat Judge third, and Stanton behind him. With Stanton behind Judge, Stanton's not a three-hitter, right? He strikes out way too much to be a three-hitter, even by modern standards. So you can't put him at 3. So that's why they have Rizzo typically batting there. Rizzo's not a 3-hitter either because he's not a big threat. He's a good hitter. You know, he can put the bat on the ball. He doesn't strike out that much. But if I'm a pitcher and I'm facing Aaron Judge and there's no one on base and Rizzo's up next, I'm not giving Judge anything to hit in that situation. I'm not. But if we move the order around, let's flip those two. Put Rizzo second. Now Rizzo's going to get a lot of pitches to hit because I don't want to face Aaron Judge. So I'm going to go after Rizzo, right? I don't want to walk Rizzo. I want to, get him out because I don't want to run around the base with Judge coming up. And then furthermore, more importantly, when Judge does come up, I have to pitch to him because I'm not putting a guy, a first guy, or God forbid, a second guy. I'm not putting 1 or 2 men on base for Stanton. I mean, I know Stanton is very likely to strike out, but he's almost as likely to just hit a 3-run home run too. It stacks the lineup better. It offers much better protection if you just flip the order of batting Rizzo from third to second, moving Judge to third, keeping Stanton in that 4-hole. It just makes so much more sense. But they don't do that. And part of the reason I think the Yankees hear their fan base more than other teams. They don't necessarily give the fans what they want, but I think they really hear them. And I think sometimes what they hear on talk shows like this, what they hear at the water cooler, so to speak, what they hear public discussion, sometimes seeps into their own beliefs, even if it's not ever publicly acknowledged, which of course it never would be. I think this is one of those cases. I think the Yankees, as an organization, somewhat believe that Stanton is to be viewed as found money, that he's not supposed to be viewed as some type of critical piece, which is why they don't put Judge in front of him. They don't trust Stanton enough to offer protection to Judge. They'd rather trust Anthony Rizzo. And I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's backwards and stupid. But I truly believe that's the case. I really do. And early on, watching that home run yesterday, it reminds me why it's so dumb. This guy is a monster. Monster. If he's healthy, he's my 4-hitter. Judge is my 3-hitter. And that's all there is to it. It's so simple. A caveman can do it, right, Geico? I mean, my goodness. It's really unbelievable. So there you have it. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We got Jim Volkmer coming up next, and we'll finish out with some news you can use. It's the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Coffee Lovers Middletown is now officially home to the home run of our favorite beverage, Days Coffee. Days patented blend contains approximately 85% less caffeine than other coffees, which makes it better for you, yet unlike decaf coffee, still gives you that great pickup and tastes amazing. Formulated by a retired cancer pathologist, Dr. Grant Lee, Days Coffee is fermented with a patented enzyme that until now required a complex and thus expensive sourcing and production process. With Dr. Lee's formulation, this enzyme's great health benefits can now be brought to your cup quicker, easier, and cheaper than ever before. Here's how you get a hold of this game-changing cup of joe. Go over to radioonlydeals.com and get a $4 gift certificate to Days Coffee for just $2. That's radioonlydeals.com to buy your single-use digital gift certificate for Days Coffee. Radioonlydeals.com. That's radioonlydeals.com. Enjoy the preferred coffee of the Gary Ayd Show. Enjoy Days Coffee.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at crazy low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts at over 500 different airlines. Plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best price for you. Call SmartFares today and get ready to see the world with a fat wallet.
800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. That's 800-370-2460.
Come on, you watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then if you owe back taxes or haven't filed in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate with the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do, and you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. That's 800-649-8617.
All righty, welcome back to the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave. We're about to bring on Jim Volkmer talking some baseball betting lines, but before we do that, a quick scoreboard update from the OC Smash over the weekend. The Smash 13U team, coached by Anthony Rizzi, played 3 games in Dorey Park, Virginia over the weekend, battling against elite competition to a respectable 1-2 mark. The weekend was highlighted by a 14-4 victory in the middle game against the Pioneers. And center fielder Aaron Drucker was 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs, a walk, a run scored, and a stolen base. Meanwhile, Logan Miller played a strong first base and totaled 2 RBIs and 2 bases on balls to go with 2 innings on the mound, allowing just 1 run while striking out 2. Collectively, Jake Cross and Michael Zimberry were awarded the Players of the Week for their consistent play throughout the weekend, both on the mound and in their batter's box. You'll hear from them later in the week here on the show. Meanwhile, the 11U and 10U squads both faced each other twice over the weekend. And while the 11U squad won both times, the 10U team got a lot of great experience and played very well against their older Smash comrades. Counting the 2 intra-organizational wins this weekend, the 11U team now stands at 5-1 on the year. In other action, the OC Smash Navy 12U squad split 2 games against the Naturals, winning the first 9-1 before falling narrowly 7-6 in the second. Connor McHale had himself a weekend. He pitched and played center field, totaled 2 runs and 2 RBIs on 1 hit and the walk. That hit was a 2-run home run, and McHale also pitched 2 scoreless innings, striking out 5. So great performance from him, and his teammate Byron Brach added another RBI and 2 stolen bases to help the winning effort. Finally, you had the 9U squad, which won its first official game of the year in a shootout 15-12 against the Stars Baseball Academy. And 6 Smash players had at least 1 RBI in this one, led by the 5 RBIs of Bryce Seabury. The other 5 Smash players to drive in the run were Bryce Lilia, John Loftus, Michael Levine, Dylan Torso, and Tommy McKeon, who had 2 RBIs. And again, we'll have full feature-length interviews with our Players of the Week, Jake Cross and Michael Zimberry. That's coming up tomorrow on the Gary Ayd Show at about 10:30. Make sure you have the Cave Talk Radio app installed and follow us on Facebook, Cave Talk Radio NY, to hear this week's Players of the Week for the Smash. And that does it for our OC Smash action update. And right now we welcome on Jim Volkmer to talk some Major League Baseball, talking some betting lines. What's up, man? It's been forever. It's great to have you back on the show.
What's going on? Oh, it's good to be back here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we missed you, man. I mean, it's been a heck of a first week of baseball. Wouldn't you say? My goodness, both New York teams, we're in for a fun year.
I tell you what, watching this so far, I'm loving the rule changes. I'm loving this time pitching so that you get, games are going by faster. The bases are a little bigger, so that's giving these runners a little bit more time to steal that extra base. Game is getting back to the way it was played back in the day. Even the shifting of all the players, having to stay now on their sides of the field. It's great. I love it.
Oh, I love it. I'm with you 100%. The pitch clock in particular to me and the shift, those two things have made such a difference every pitch. Like, it's just, they throw the ball, something happens. Okay, they get it back, they throw it again. There's none of this just standing around nonsense that we got so used to seeing. People started defending it. I was like, you don't really like it. You just think you like it because it's what you know. No one likes this stuff. Like, what are we missing now? We're missing guys adjusting their batting gloves after they didn't move. I mean, that's what they got cut out.
So true.
It's like I had the image of Nomar Garciaparra in my head of him like adjusting his batting gloves like neurotically. He didn't even move. Like, what are you adjusting?
Yep. That is so. I love it. I say it makes baseball so much fun to watch again.
100%.
It really does.
Couldn't agree with you more. I'm 1,000% in agreement. So, all right. So let's take a look at some of these betting lines. Let's start with the Mets. We'll go with the Mets, the Yankees, and sort of the rest of MLB in sort of a formatic way. We'll look at some lines, like just game lines, some props, and some fantasy plays for both teams, and then maybe a couple of things outside of New York to kind of keep an eye on. So, the Mets and Yankees both won their opening series, looking pretty good on the field. How are they looking on the betting field? Let's start with the Mets.
I'll tell you what, on the betting field, yesterday was a good day. You were actually mentioning it before with Stanton hitting a home run, Judge hitting another home run. I mean, these guys are starting to hit already, which is great to see. Usually they're not smacking the ball that good this quick in the season. So, just by seeing that. But let's go back over to the Mets. First of all, the Mets right now, they looked okay. They're playing the Brewers, who actually lost 2 out of 3. Or, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry. They won 2 out of 3.
They won 2 out of 3, yes.
They won 2 out of 3. I apologize. It's a good matchup for the Mets starting today. 2:20 game over in Chicago, over at Wrigley. You got Carlos Carrasco going against Freddie Peralta today. The over-under in that game is 8, which usually is right around the number, unless you got 2 ace pitchers going. Then they drop it down sometimes, like 5.
You might see a little variance on that line. I'm looking on Resorts World. It's 8.5 at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's right around there, 8.5. They throw that hook in there just to make it fun.
Or right. Or they got Brewers favored by 1.5 runs. You could go that way in. Or they got the money line at minus 120 to the 100.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different ways you can go in and bet this game. But I started looking at this game and trying to really break it down. And I think I found a couple of really big things in this game. You've got a guy from the Brewers, Willie Adames, who is 7 for 9. That's a 778 average lifetime against Carrasco. I mean, that's huge.
Not good. If you're the Mets, that's bad news.
Oh, absolutely. And then right in that same lineup, you've got William Contreras, who's 3 for 6 against them lifetime. But out of those 3 out of 6, 2 were home runs. And then you got Rowdy Tellez, who's 3 for 7 against them lifetime. So I think the Mets are going to have a tough time today going against. We're looking at the Mets lineup. The only guy that really stuck out to me was Lindor today. I mean, he was only 1 for 3, but it was a home run that he hit against Peralta. So looking at that game and looking at the odds and everything, I think that the Mets are not a good take today. I think taking the Brewers, laying that little bit will be a good thing.
Well, you mentioned Willie Adames and his sort of Herculean numbers against Carrasco. What do you make of this prop? Looking at, again, Resorts World, over half a home run. So if to hit a home run, or Adames, you get plus 320. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing is, it's okay, but I have better people hitting the home run today, and I'll tell you that in a little bit.
Okay.
Adames, I wouldn't go with. He only has one out of those 9 at bats, which is, I mean, it's good, but it's just that one. If I went with anybody, I would go with Contreras in that game to hit one.
Okay.
He's got 2 out of 6 at bats. I mean, that's a lot better odds as far as a home run wise. If I was really to do something in that game, what I would do is I would personally take 4 players, and that would be Adames, Contreras, Tellez, and Lindor, and I would put them all in a parlay for all of them just to get 1 hit each.
Interesting.
And if you do that, the way I got it all figured out, it comes out to be for $1. I think it was $31 you can win back for $1.
So there was Adonis and who?
Adonis, Contreras, Tellez, and Lindor. So those are the 4 that I would wrap up into a same game matchup.
Interesting. I like
and
it.
that's just getting a hit. That doesn't even have to be a home run.
Right. That's just a hit. I understand. What about the Yankees?
The Yankees today, this is where when I said I have a better home run shot for you. Today, I think, even though Judge already has 2 homers out of 3 games, I think he's got another one coming today. He is 4 for 11 against, who is it? Taijuan Walker, who used to be the Mets pitcher.
Yes.
And 4 for 11, and all 4 of those hits,
dingers,
gone. Gone. The ball was never seen again. For a home run and trying to put somebody maybe to bet somebody to hit a home run today, Aaron Judge is probably that guy. And I would also, and I did this yesterday, I actually had Judge and Stanton to hit home runs yesterday. And they both did in the same inning. I would do it again today. In fact, I think I'm going to do it again today. Stanton's 4 for 10 with a home run against this guy also. So they both have good numbers against Taijuan, and I think the Yankees are going to destroy them today. You got Mr. Nasty, Nestor Cortez going today. I got an over-under of 8 in that game. I have it at the Yankees at minus 170. But I'm not going to go that route. I'm just going to go a money line on the Yankees just to win the game.
Just outright.
And I'm going to take a little shot here. In fact, here's the other key about that game. The Phillies, the only people that are in that lineup, they are 1 for 11 lifetime against Cortez.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they all haven't batted against them lifetime.
Right.
But the ones that
have not
1
done
for 11,
well.
I'll take those odds.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous. Now, before we continue on here, I just wanted to interject something. What's your take? You've been a Yankee fan a long time. What's your take on my approach to the lineup? Doesn't it just make more sense to have Judge in the 3-hole with Stan protecting him and Rizzo in front of him? Because if I'm a pitcher, let's say DJ LeMahieu gets out to lead off the game, and Rizzo's behind Judge, why am I going to give Judge anything to hit? I'm not afraid of Anthony Rizzo.
No, I actually do agree with what you said. It makes a lot of sense.
I mean, at least Stanton, I'm afraid of. Yeah, he might strike out, but he's just as liable to hit a 500-foot shot like we saw last night.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with it. The thing that I will say is, and yes, they haven't won the big games yet. They play well during the season, and I guess, the main thing about that was at first was trying to give him all the at-bats that they can get him, which I understand, trying to get him the extra at-bats. But you need to have guys on base when he gets up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have it on, it's going to be a lot of just solo shots.
Yeah. Well, LeMahieu obviously is a good leadoff guy. I mean, Rizzo doesn't strike out much. He puts the bat on the ball, has a decent OPS.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the other reason is I think Rizzo can get on base.
Yep.
But I'm not going to throw to Aaron Judge if DJ LeMahieu, let's say he gets a hit. and then Rizzo's Judge is up behind him. I'm not going to throw the Judge even there with LeMahieu on, with Rizzo behind him. You know, I'll nibble. I'm not going to give him anything good to hit.
Right.
You know,
it's funny. They had Volpe. Volpe was on base yesterday, and he was on first base, and Judge got up, and he wasn't even trying to steal second base because they just wanted Aaron Judge to hit.
Right.
They didn't want to take second and then just walk him on purpose. So what they ended up doing, though, was they ended up walking him anyway. So he did get the. And then on the next batter up, I forget who it was exactly, but there was a pitch, and they both stole. It was second and third with whoever out. Then they stole right away. But they wanted to give Aaron Judge that time and that respect that, hey, now is your time. We're not going to steal bases so they can just walk you. We want you up with us on base.
Absolutely. And, that's one, getting back to what you said at the start here, Jim, that's one of the most obvious areas where these rule changes have infused life back into the sport is on the base pass. I mean, those type of things. Could you imagine last year or anywhere in the last 10 years, a double steal attempt on the Yankees like that? Never happened.
No, never. You're right. Never.
Never happened.
It's exciting to see the Yankees have a little bit of speed back. This Volpe kid, I'm really liking him. I've watched every game this weekend, and in 3 games that he's been in, he has stolen 3 bases.
Yeah.
And I think that he's really going to be, he's not going to be the next Derek Jeter, but he's going to make people forget about him a little bit because he'll start doing comparisons in a while. You'll see.
No, he's good.
He's got the pop. He's got the flash. I like the way he runs the bases. I don't know if you've watched him yet, but if he's on first base, he takes a little lead, then he gives a hop like a rabbit. He hops, and then he takes. It's crazy. You gotta watch his approach of how he tries to steal.
No, he is something. And I'll say one other thing is that there was a statistic I heard on the Mets broadcast yesterday, and now I don't remember the specifics, but basically it was the first time in 30 years where the Mets have had, I think, at least one stolen base in their first 3 games or something like that. Like it was I think that was it. It was the first time in 30 years that the Mets have had 1 or more steals in every one of their first 3 games. And that just speaks to what we were talking about. All right, we got a couple minutes left here. Anything interesting outside of the New York area from a betting perspective that we should keep an eye on tonight?
There was one other thing, couple things actually that I kind of looked at. Arizona tonight, they're going against the Padres, who've been playing very good ball too already this year. But they have 5 guys in their lineup tonight that are batting .500 against Ryan Weathers of the Padres. 5 guys. And I'm not talking about a burger restaurant.
Oh, man. I got my hopes up, Jim.
I know I was going to get you excited.
Pickles or no pickles? That's the only question.
That's right.
All about the pickles.
But that's one thing. Another thing is another guy that actually has some interesting numbers that to watch out for tonight is Jose Abreu, who's on the Astros now. 14 for 36 against Matthew Boyd with 2 homers. So those are a couple of guys that he's one that I would definitely maybe take a shot with. And my biggest thing tonight that I think for a nice prop bet is, and it's a risky one again, is taking Judge, taking Stanton, and saying that the Yankees just win outright. You get 20 to 1 for that.
So that's Judge and Stanton both to get hits and the Yankees to win. Is that what it is?
Nope, to get home run. They have to get home.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not just a hit.
Ooh.
Theirs are going to be homers because they have the big numbers against this kid. So I took a shot yesterday with one, and it was the same way. It was with Judge and Stanton to hit a home run, Volpe to steal a base, the Yankees to win by, and I changed the line, over 5.5, and they won by 6.
You hit that then?
I hit the whole thing yesterday.
Yeah.
It was a sweet hit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really good. So
wow, that's a hell of a win, man.
Yes, it was. And I spreaded that whole thing out too.
Yeah, because what did they win by? They got a late run.
Won by 6.
Didn't they get a late run? Like, didn't they score late?
They did actually.
Yeah.
And Volpe stole the base that I needed in the 8th inning.
That's right. Oh man, yeah, you sweated like a monkey that whole game. You were probably sweating
That's
bullets.
the one that I talked about before earlier, that when he wasn't trying when Judge was up. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I need.
Oh man, that's great. That's hilarious. What a win.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, so we'll be keeping an eye on that stuff later today. And yeah, let's go Mets and let's go Yankees. Good early start to New York baseball.
Absolutely.
It's good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, good stuff, man. Thanks for making some time for us today. We appreciate it.
All right, Gary, you take care.
All right, that's Jim Volkmer. This is the Gary Ayd Show. Back after this here on The Cave.
Your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at crazy low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts at over 500 different airlines. Plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best price for you. Call SmartFares today and get ready to see the world with a fat wallet.
800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. That's 800-370-2460.
Come on. You watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then, if you owe back taxes or haven't filed in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate with the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do, and you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. That's 800-649-8617.
All righty, we are back here on the Gary Ayd Show. Good stuff from Jim Volkmer there. By the way, what a hit. What a great hit. Judge, Stanton home runs, Volpe a stolen base, Yankees by 5.5, all 4. Oh man, what a great hit. Good job there. I like his Jose Abreu call out too. God, that guy's been around forever, hasn't he? My goodness. Unbelievable. All right, let's close this out with some news you can use. First and foremost, what do you make of the fact that that UFC and the WWE have merged? That is a crazy story. So this creates a huge entity, a $21.4 billion entity. So they are combining WWE and the company that runs UFC. It will be a new publicly traded company, and it's going to house both organizations. Endeavor Group Holdings takes a 51% controlling interest in the new company. Existing WWE shareholders will hold a 49% stake. So the companies put the enterprise value of UFC at $12.1 billion and WWE at $9.3 billion. The new business, which does not yet have a name, will be led by Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel. Vince McMahon, who's the executive chairman of WWE, will serve in the same role at the new company. Dana White will continue as president of the UFC, and Nick Khan will be president at WWE. So this is pretty monumental. What's going to be interesting is, does this corporate merger eventually create some type of product merger? In other words, will we start seeing WWE wrestlers having matches with UFC fighters the same way we've seen UFC fighters have boxing matches. It would have to be different. You would probably have to do the UFC fighter would have to come to the turf of the wrestler, right? In most cases, because most wrestlers, Brock Lesnar being an obvious notable exception, there's probably a few others I'm less aware of, but most wrestlers are not going to have UFC training. So whereas I guess it's probably a little easy, not that UFC fighters would necessarily have wrestling training, but it's easier to be a celebrity or a amateur wrestling opponent than it is the other way around, right? I mean, we've seen Karl Malone do it. We've seen LT do it. We've seen this done before. Shaq, Chuck Norris had a cameo back in the day. So like, this is something that, can be done easier. And that would be interesting. Will there eventually be crossover use of UFC and WWE talent in some way? That's what I'm going to be paying attention to. But this makes an interesting combination. And you wonder, the other thing it does is it further isolates the only combat sport that I really personally like, which is boxing. Now boxing's all on its own. Does boxing eventually try to join this company as a triumvirate? That's a interesting thing to look at into the future. So anyway, there you go. That is our biggest news you can use story. Something else worth keeping an eye on that's interesting is you look at let's see here. I lost my place. Oh, the Blazers. Yeah, that's what it was. The Blazers beat the Timberwolves. What an upset. They were like 20-point underdogs, nothing to play for. All of their guys basically out, and they beat the Timberwolves, who had everything to play for. That is a huge, inexcusable loss. If you're Minnesota, that's a game you cannot lose. You can't lose that game. I'm sorry. Like, that's just like unacceptable. You're playing for your play-in lives. You're playing a team that you're better than head to head. And on top of that, they're missing all their guys. This was actually an historical upset. This was a 30-year upset. This is the largest NBA upset in 30 years. They knocked off the Timberwolves, who were a 19.5-point favorite. They were missing their 4 starters. Lillard was out. I believe it was Simons, Nurkic, and Grant. Those are their 4 best players. Who else on that roster matters? I mean, my God, what a terrible loss. I mean, this is the type of thing that has the potential to linger and set a franchise back, right? I mean, this is the type of loss that you don't just like kind of move past as easily. You try to, but that's a tough loss. Not only because of the outcome of it, just on its face value of how improbable it was. Biggest upset in 30 years, right? But more because of the implications in the standings and what this did to the Timberwolves. I mean, it really hurt them. They're still in it. They got a few games left, but this is a win that they should have had. Rookie Shaden Sharp led the way for Portland with 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. But man, what a loss for the Timberwolves. That's a tough one. It really is. No NBA games tonight. There'll be a full slate on Tuesday. We'll talk about those tomorrow. A lot of games yesterday, though. 13 yesterday. Taking a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard from yesterday, just while we have a couple of minutes here. We mentioned the Blazers winning 107-105. The Raptors beat the Hornets 128-108. The Jazz and Nets played a nail-biter, with the Nets prevailing by a single point, 111-102, to 110, excuse me. Talen Horton-Tucker led the way for Utah with 32 points. Mikal Bridges had 30 and 7, along with 3 steals for the Nets. That's 7 rebounds. So they got the W. They continue to be in good position for the playoffs. The Bulls, another big upset last night against the Grizzlies, beating them by a score of 128-107, a resounding victory. And I said this yesterday, that the wing athleticism of the Bulls was likely to give the Grizzlies some problems. I thought the Grizzlies would have enough to overcome it. They didn't. And true to form, true to my prediction, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan absolutely gave them nightmares all game long. DeRozan had 31 points and was 11 for 26. LaVine even better, 13 for 19 with 36 points. The two of them just totally dominated the Grizzlies. And that's something that is going to be a tough thing to deal with going forward for Memphis, or those wing athletic teams. That's going to be tough. That's why I think the Lakers and the Clippers in particular, and the Suns, those three teams, I think will give the Grizzlies a lot of trouble in the playoffs should they match up with any one of them at one point, which they probably will. Going back to the rest of the NBA scores from yesterday, in case you missed it, we mentioned the Blazers, we mentioned the Raptors, Nets with that close win. The Hawks beat the Mavericks in an important game, 132-130. That game was in overtime. The Hawks won it by a bucket in overtime. Kyrie Irving with 41 in this game. Trae Young with 24 points and 12 assists. The Knicks beat the Wizards 118-109. Jalen Brunson had 27 points, 8 assists, and 3 steals. And Corey Kispert from Gonzaga had 29 to lead the way for Washington. Looking at some other games, the Magic beat the Pistons 128-102. And Franz Wagner had 16 points and 8 assists for the victorious Magic. Another huge surprise. 3 big upsets in the NBA last night. The Kings fell to the Spurs in overtime, 142-134. What a crazy game. And Tyus Jones, 17, 10, and 11, a triple-double for the Spurs, while Domas Sabonis finished with 26 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 8 rebounds. And the Lakers won against the Rockets, 134-109. Anthony Davis, 40 points, 9 boards. And then you had the Suns beating the Thunder 128-118. Kevin Durant with 35. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 39 points in the loss. The Cavs beat the Pacers by 10, 115-105. TJ McConnell had 16 for Indiana. Donovan Mitchell 40 points, 3 steals for the Cavs. The Bucks, an important and best game of the night on Sunday, beat the 76ers 117-104. Joel Embiid with 28 and 9 for the Sixers in their loss. The Giannis stat line was equally impressive, maybe more so. 33 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists in the victory. And lastly, you had the Nuggets edging the Warriors by 2. Dante DiVincenzo had a good game, 13 rebounds and 18 points. Jamal Murray, though, better at 26 and 8. So there you have it. That is your out-of-town NBA scoreboard. And looking at tonight's MLB action as we head out the door here, let's take a quick look. We heard Jim talking about the gambling angles. Mets and Brewers are going at it. And you have Carlos Carrasco versus Freddie Peralta. That game starts in about 2 hours. And as far as the other local, the Yankees are hosting the Philadelphia Phillies, and it's Walker versus Cortez. So those are your games. We'll take a look at them. We'll talk about them tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow. That does it for us. This is the Gary Ayd Show, back tomorrow from 10 to noon here on The Cave.